My name is William Michael Dillon. I was arrested for murder on August 26, 1981, for a crime I didn't commit. I was released on November 18, 2008. Thank you for the keepers of justice. Took me away when I was a teen. Not really more than a boy, just lean. Sent to hell's prison to seal my fate. Only my will to survive. Let me reach that gate. Let me reach that gate. Let me reach that gate. I had to reach that gate. Black robes and lights.
There's an epidemic in America's criminal justice system. The prosecution and conviction of innocent people for crimes they did not commit. Welcome to the American Justice Podcast. Your hosts, Scott Poggensee and C. Derick Miller, come together to bring you the inside scoop on all of the wrongful conviction stories, both new and old. It's not only about the innocent who have been in prison, but also the victims of crimes as well. No one deserves justice more than them. And now, here are your hosts, Scott Poggensee and C. Derick Miller.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the American Justice Podcast,
where we talk shit.
And we talk crime, but we never talk shitty crime. What's up, C. Derick?
Man, is it summer? It is summer. It is
officially
hot
summer.
As balls out there. It is so hot. Actually, just got back from a trip to Mena, Arkansas.
Mm-hmm.
Went and we're like, hey, let's go climb a mountain. Well, you know, in the South, that just gets you closer to the sun. So the temperature doesn't change much. And, you know, most of the little creeks and rivers that we normally go play in were pretty dry. And but it was fun just getting away and doing things with the wife.
Yeah, I saw your post, and I was definitely very, very jealous because I wanted just go take a weekend sometime and just relax. And
it's a quick little drive. It's not that bad. Not that bad.
Cool. Well,
I'll give you the hookup with my Airbnb. There. It's a fairly inexpensive little Airbnb, little shared cabin in Mena, Arkansas. Not too shabby.
how long of a drive is it?
Oh, let's see, maybe total 4.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
That's not bad.
Not too bad.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, definitely share that information, and maybe someday they will be sponsors of the American Justice Podcast.
That would be nice. I've never met the owners. Everything is done online through the Airbnb app. I mean, for all I know, they're robots. There's something. Who knows?
Well, I've heard the robots are taking over.
They are taking over. Yes.
Well, see, Derick, today we have a very special episode. We have the episode of William Dillon, and the viewers or the listeners are going to be hearing, I guess viewers on YouTube, but listeners on the podcast are going to be hearing from William Dillon himself.
You know, and that's something I can't stress enough, really. I mean, it's a lot of people listen to podcasts in their car because they're doing it on their commute, whether it's to work or to home. But if you watch these episodes on YouTube, especially during season 1, all of the, I guess, recorded video that we play the audio to when you're listening on Spotify or whatever, iTunes. Is it still iTunes or is it Apple Podcasts?
Apple Podcasts.
Apple Podcasts. Okay. But if you're watching our YouTube feed, then you actually get to see those videos as well.
Right.
So, you know, I mean, there's nothing sexier than like 20-year-old Charla Woodruff in a hoodie.
Well, you know, that's it's especially good for season 1. In season 3, we really don't have a whole lot since we don't use a lot of video footage. But yeah, for season 1, if you want to go see the way that Charla kind of shifts her weight and all the little micro tells, as Susan Constantine talks about.
Micro tells. I thought that was a new nickname you came up for Etherington. Micro tell.
Well,
that's what his wife calls his wiener.
I was going to say, luckily I can say I don't know. So, But,
come on, honey, come to bed and bring your little microtel with you.
Oh man, well,
Cock.
well, we're gonna be. Oh my. Anyway, so yes, so today we're going to be talking with and about William Dillon. He is, and this is one of those that I'm super happy that he actually talked to us, because this is a trend that we would like to get going. We do have another episode coming up in a few weeks, Mr. Valentino, and we'll be talking to him as well. So it's awesome when we get to talk to people and actually hear from their own mouth what it was like. It's not like just a recorded episode that they did on the Today Show or anything like that. It's actually talking to us here at the American Justice Podcast.
I like it. I like it a lot.
So we will definitely be reaching out to all of the stories that we do, of course, the people that are still alive, and we'll see if they will talk to us. I think you guys will find it very interesting, and in addition to in addition to actually talking to him during an interview, we actually have some music of his as well.
Oh, that's cool.
He's a very, very good, well accomplished musician. He's a good singer. He plays the guitar. I think you guys will enjoy it.
That's cool. Anybody who can do those two things combined, I find impressive. I do both, but I do them separately because I don't have the rhythm to do them together.
Yeah, and I do neither at all. So I'm impressed anytime anyone can do either one. I mean, I do sing, but the cockroaches leave whenever I do. So, I sing in the shower. That's about
great.
it.
We have a pet snake, and like every 10 days I go buy a mouse for this snake, and I feel so sorry for this mouse because the last thing it hears is 30 minutes of me singing in the truck before it gets fed to a snake. I mean, if there is a such thing as hell, I'm sure that's it.
I don't know. I've been with you at karaoke night, and I think that would be his last pleasure before being devoured.
It'll get different now. I'm officially 2 months sober.
Yes.
And when I do go to the bar, sing karaoke, I'm drinking non-alcoholic beer. I'm just straight, stone cold sober through the whole thing. So the singing will get better.
What's the old expression? We never knew that Chad was a drunk until he came home sober one day.
Yeah, something along those lines.
Or something along those lines, yeah.
Hi, my name is William Michael Dillon. I was arrested for murder on August 25th, 1981 for a crime I didn't commit. I spent 27 and a half years wrongfully convicted in the state of Florida.
Spent most of my life in prison, chasing a dream called justice. Chasing a dream, chasing a dream. Won't somebody please hear my plea? Won't somebody please set me free?
Anyways, all right, well, let's get into it. According to the National Registry of Exonerations, there have been 3,049 exonerations since 1989, and in that time, over 26,700 years have been lost.
That's insane.
Usually it's hard to comprehend numbers in the millions or billions, as like how much money Jeff Bezos or Mark Zuckerberg has, or Elon. Who cares? Who cares about him? Mike Zuckerberg. Let's call him Mike Zuckerberg.
Little Mikey Zuckerberg is going to loan me some money.
I don't know. I don't know if he has enough billions or trillions.
I saw like a meme the other day that had like just him straight faced. Well, okay, first of all, he has no emotions. Like
Right.
whoever the robotics company is that invented him, they haven't got around to the face yet.
The emotion
he
part,
always has that look on his face. And a meme said that he looks like that guy in a zombie movie that's been bitten, but he's trying to like hide it.
Right.
That's exactly what he looks like.
Right. All right. Well, so numbers like that are hard to comprehend in the millions or billions, as in how much Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, or Elon Musk don't pay their fair share of taxes on.
Right.
Allegedly.
Asshats.
But while it's great to hear that thousands of wrongfully convicted people have been set free, that second number, 26,700 years lost. That's a bigger number than it seems just on its face. It represents all the love, family, friends, holidays, and birthdays missed. Not to mention the peace of mind, the security, and the safety we all take for granted out here in the free world. If it were just a matter of DNA technology catching up with unfortunate verdicts, that would be one thing. But many times it's a matter of corruption in the legal system that ineptly or willfully puts innocent people behind bars for unfathomable reasons.
Like being president of the United States and throwing plates of food against the wall.
And all the ketchup running
And
down
all
the
the
wall.
ketchup running.
That was so, oh man, somebody needs to do that in like cartoon form or something.
I think they already have.
Well, as you probably discovered in previous episodes, logic and fair play are sometimes not at the forefront of how the justice system operates. 26,700 years wasted. And on that cheery note, brace yourselves, dear listeners. This story takes us to Florida.
Oh, God.
The Sunshine State, home of Mickey and Minnie. Actually, I think Disneyland in
California.
In California
It was
is the home of Disney.
Yeah, they just vacation in Florida.
They vacation in Florida.
They got a bed like somewhere behind the wall in DeSantis' house.
Right. Well, honestly, I never noticed until a few years ago that a lot of weird things happen in Florida. But I guess after the third or fourth time Stephen Colbert spotlights a state in his Meanwhile segment, one starts to catch on. I mean, absolutely no offense to most Floridians. It just seems that what happens in Florida ends up in the news everywhere.
Well, let me ask you this. So as of today's date, there have been officially 3,066 exonerations. Obviously, that means that the justice system is getting it wrong a lot. Do you think that people just don't realize how many wrongful convictions there really are?
Yes, I do believe that that's what people think, and I understand this to be always the statement. Well, if they got you wrong, there's so many that they got right. Or at the same time is, why would they pick you? You know, what is it? And I do believe that some part of America, the world, is waking up to the fact of that prosecutions can be done wrong, that people are innocent, that get convicted. I do believe that they're waking up to that fact, but not very much. It's coming slowly. It started to trend a little bit in the last few years, but again, I think it's subsiding again. I just think that people just don't see it. They just don't see it as real progress. You know, when I go to these conferences with these men and women that have been wrongfully convicted, you know, we talk about the same sort of senses of the fact of, do people actually, I mean, you talk to people and they just can't imagine a person spending 28 years in the prison. They just can't see it, and they're talking to them. And look at you. You talk like you're a very normal person. I said, yeah, I'm a normal person. But I did spend almost 28 years in prison for something that I did not do. And they just can't fathom it. And that's the way we're taught. We're taught, and we've been brought up all through, is you cannot question authority. And that's why people think the way they think. That's why they think that everything that the police do is perfect and they don't make mistakes. And we got to somehow get around that. I mean, reality is that they get a lot of it right, but they get a good percentage of it wrong too. Because everybody is taught that law and order is the law of the land and that what they say goes. And that's basically how my parents felt. My parents felt that the law told them that I did something. And regardless of what I said, they believed that the law, and of course the law told them that I could have been out of my mind and I didn't know what I was doing. So they fell for that one too.
All right, so Florida, specifically Brevard County near Canova Beach. On the morning of Monday, August 17th, 1981, James Dvorak was beaten to death in some woods near the beach. Sometime later that same morning, a man was hitchhiking near the same beach. He was wearing a bloody yellow T-shirt with the words "Surf It" emblazoned across the front. The Florida of it all began when a truck driver named John Parker picked up this hitchhiker with a blood-stained T-shirt. Who does that? All right, I'm already worried about how the rest of this story is going to go. How about you guys?
Oh, man. I mean, people, if a hitchhiker is wearing a three-piece suit, most times he won't get picked up. This guy picked up the one wearing a bloody T-shirt.
Well, this was 1981, though, so that's a little bit different, I think. I mean, not the bloody T-shirt part, but, you know, you had a bigger chance of being picked up as a hitchhiker in 1981 than you do today, for sure. All the stories of the serial killers and stuff have come out.
Yeah.
The Sixth Amendment of the United States Constitution guarantees all defendants the right to a fair trial by a jury of their impartial peers. Do you have a loved one that was convicted and is now in prison? Are you frustrated with the appeals process? Did you know that sometimes people lie to get on a jury? This is a felony and can be appealed by the defendant. The Conviction Integrity Group investigates these jurors along with their friends and family. Go to www.juryintegrity.com to find out more. Guilt or innocence doesn't matter. Everyone deserves a fair trial. Everyone. Go to www.juryintegrity.com to find out more.
Well, this is John Parker's perspective of how events folded. He could see the hitchhiker by his truck's interior light. He saw that the man was sweaty and had blood on his T-shirt, leg, and shorts. Did he ask him any questions when he pulled over? Like, for instance, hey, whose blood is that over you, man? He agreed to drive the hitchhiker, who called himself, quote, Jim, to a tavern 3 miles away. Hasn't this truck driver seen at least one scary movie? I mean, everyone knows that the character who picks up the hitchhiker isn't long for this world. Well, maybe this guy will be lucky. I think I'd like to coin the phrase, dumbass lucky.
Dumbass lucky.
Right about now. But it gets weirder. Or Florida-er.
Yes.
On the way to the bar. No, this isn't a joke, I swear. Mr. Parker stopped the car and performed oral sex on the hitchhiker.
Like, did he even bother to wipe him down first? I mean, if the guy's got blood all over his shirt, he's got blood on his legs. I mean, there has to be blood in between too.
Well, I would assume that. I mean, yeah.
Some people like ketchup on their hot dogs, man.
Well,
I never quite understood that, but
we'll not visualize that. Eventually,
I'm a mustard guy. I just want to put that out there.
Eventually, he dropped Jim, the hitchhiker, off at the tavern. Sometime later that morning, Parker found the bloody T-shirt in his truck. He threw. I mean, that makes sense. If you're going to perform oral sex, you got to take his shirt off and throw it. He threw it out in a grocery store trash can. I can't really blame John for that, but I wonder if it crossed his mind that he was tossing away some important evidence. I mean, it's kind of a surprise at this point in our tale, Oh, Florida, that he didn't keep it as a souvenir, to be honest. Anyway,
I never did that. I never kept souvenirs. not that I've just
the bloody T-shirts of guys that you performed oral sex on. Not that I've performed oral sex
on a lot of hitchhikers, but even in my days where I was running through women like it was nobody's business, I still didn't keep
the bras or
no, I didn't. And if they left things at my house, I made sure they got it back.
Oh, I thought you were going to say he threw it away.
I was a responsible asshole.
Well, that was nice of you. Well, James Dvorak's body was found in the woods by the beach that same morning. He was nude and severely beaten. Naturally, the police collected evidence from the crime scene, including James's clothing that was strewn about. John Parker saw a story about the murder on the news and called the police. He told them about, quote, Jim, the hitchhiker, and the T-shirt that he threw away. The police found the T-shirt and gathered evidence from Mr. Parker's truck. 5 days later, 21-year-old William Dillon, a hardworking young man with 2 jobs and a big dreams of becoming a professional baseball player, went to the beach with his brother. There, he was questioned by 2 officers who said they were suspicious because William knew about the murder. You know, the one that had been in the news for 5 days?
Right.
They brought him in for further questioning. I smell some, quote, official misconduct in our future, folks.
Right. I mean, they didn't get any information from the truck driver at all because it's not polite to talk with your mouth full.
I was going to say, I wonder if he told him about the whole, going down on him.
Yeah, I can imagine in 1981, he left that part out.
Right.
In Florida, in 1981. I mean, if Florida is the way Florida is in the year 2022, I can imagine it's just way worse in 1981. And yeah, that's just something you don't go around telling the authorities.
Right, exactly.
I want to say this, I think to everyone's delight, there have been some conviction integrity units that are popping up around the country. Obviously not enough, but there's been some. But by and large, there really are no penalties for prosecutorial misconduct. There have been some exceptions, like the Michael Morton case here in Texas, where the DA was actually disbarred and actually sentenced to jail time. But really, most of the time, these crooked DAs, they just get away with it.
Yep. They just get scot-free. Nothing you can do about it. They have protection, and they can do just exactly what they want to do and don't get any kind of recourse, punishments, or anything for what they've done.
Do you think that fosters an environment for them to be kind of emboldened to do it again and again and again?
I think it's automatic that they do it. I think that they rely that they can't be wrong, and they can't be in any way kind of punished for it. So it just leaves a wide open game. It's like giving them something that they can't get caught for.
Well, enter John Preston. He's a, quote, expert in the use of scent tracking dogs. He was hired by investigators to see if there was a connection between the bloody T-shirt and William.
How do you become an expert? I almost said sexpert. Sexpert. Either way, okay, let's get that out of our mind. How do you become an expert in scent tracking dogs? It just looks down. He's like, "Yep, that dog smelt it.
He must have dealt it.
He smelt it and dealt it. I'm an expert. Welcome to Florida."
Right, I'm an expert. Dude calls himself an expert. 8 days after James's murder, Preston performed 2 tests with the assistance of his dog, Harris 2. Obvious name. Why not just call him Coercion 101? Or Wrongful Conviction 3000. Clearly, the dog is not to blame for his name in any case, but Preston said that the test concluded that the T-shirt was linked to the crime scene and William was linked to the T-shirt. One of the tests, referred to as a, quote, paper lineup, was conducted by letting Harass, the second.
Hey, man, you seen Harass?
Smelled
shaped like a heart.
Smelled the T-shirt and then pieces of paper. One of the pieces of paper had been touched by William. Preston claimed the dog selected William's paper. William was arrested and charged with murder.
Because a dog smelled some paper.
Right. You know, this brings me back to the Casey Anthony case. Because a big part of the prosecution's case was that they had a cadaver-smelling dog that smelled a cadaver in the back of her car. And that's what, brought them. But there was, anyways.
Some people just drive stinky cars, man.
And you know where Casey Anthony was from?
Florida.
Oh, man.
I've been here for years now, paying a heavy price. So many lies, the twist of fate, the turn of the night. Won't somebody please hear my plea? Won't somebody please set me free? Spent most of my life in prison, chasing a dream called justice. chasing a dream, chasing a dream. Won't somebody please hear my plea? Won't somebody please set me free?
Can you describe what it feels like when you're being questioned and then arrested and then convicted for a crime that you know you didn't do, but everyone else is, getting on board with the "you did it" train? Talk about the disbelief or the anger or whatever you felt while it was going on.
I have to tell you that while it was happening, initially, I was in denial. I just did not believe that it was even possible to be convicted of a crime that I know I did not do. And you couldn't tell me sitting in the county jail that they were going to convict me of a crime that I knew I had not done. It just wasn't possible. It was not possible. I was true to the belief of the law of there has to be evidence. And if I wasn't involved in the crime, I know there was no evidence at all. Now, granted, I did later on start second-guessing myself and saying, am I this crazy person and I don't know what I'm doing? And I'm doing stuff that I don't know I'm doing? It went back and forth over time. It was like I was kind of losing it a little bit to where they had me in isolation because a prisoner in my cell the first day after I was in there said I confessed to him, so they put me in isolation cell. So I'm behind 2 steel doors. They have me, an innocent man, in jail for murder, and they have me in isolation cell with a cell that's no bigger than 3 feet wide, behind 2 steel doors. No TV, no nothing. And I have to go out of these doors to shower someplace around the building. They take me around. The concept of how I felt was it just wasn't possible. You believe it or not, I was a lot stronger in myself then than after my conviction. I did not believe it was possible, and in my mind, they were going to pay for my suffering of this county jail. Now, when it came down to the trial and everything, I could not believe that everything that was being said and allowed to be said, it just wasn't possible. It just wasn't possible. So I began to get very angry and frustrated, and my lawyer threatened me about sit there and write on the pad if you don't have anything else to do. There were so many little changes, but I'm not going to say there was anger there, but the real anger was after the conviction. This anger was just at some of the things that were taking place and allowing, like the man say I confessed to the crimes and stuff like that. But I still didn't believe that it was possible to be convicted. So I was really empowered by the senses that I knew I hadn't done anything wrong. So I was kind of taking it with somewhat of a grain of salt, basically. I just didn't think it was possible, and it was almost laughable.
All right. Well, what do you think, folks? Was that really enough to go on? Well, I'm sure they'll collect much more evidence than that if they want to gain a conviction, right? Yeah. I'm 90% sure they will.
Go Florida.
Well, maybe it's closer to 70%. Would you believe 50%?
If I was a guy that played the lottery,
right,
I'd still like those odds.
All right. Well, let's just say we're lacking confidence at this moment. It was at that point in my research that I became curious about, quote, paper lineups. I wanted to understand more about the science of it all. I know how accurate a dog's sense of smell can be and how that ability can assist the police greatly. Apparently, all breeds of dogs can even be trained to sniff out COVID on used masks.
What?
What a wonder.
But they don't have COVID in Florida, Scott.
Right.
So I'm calling lies.
Only in the Republican counties.
Shenanigans.
I couldn't specifically find anything about the paper lineups, but I did find some interesting information on scent identification and scent lineups. A scent lineup is a technique using a dog's alerting behavior to establish that it has detected two scents, one from a crime scene and one from a suspect, and that the scents came from the same person. Dogs really are amazing creatures. If only they could tell us in words what we infer from their alerting behavior. Scent lineup evidence shouldn't be allowed in court unless a high degree of forensic reliability can be established by following strict protocols. As most pet owners can attest, a dog's behavior can vary from day to day. Results depend upon its training, how well it knows the handler, its willingness to focus on any given day, the conditions it's working under, and crucially, the ability of the police to isolate scents from the crime scene, to name just a few considerations.
Now, see, I'm a cat guy, and I'm glad that they don't have like scent detecting cats, because what that training involves is teaching a cat how to lift up their middle toe and flip you off, because they don't care about doing any work.
I think that's pretty much all cats.
That's every single cat. Yeah, if they could learn to just stick up that middle part of their paw, we would all know what cats are thinking 24/7.
I think that I don't think we want to know what cats are thinking 24/7. Honestly,
they have all those Burmese pythons down in Florida now. That's like an invasive species. Instead of killing them, they could capture them and train them how to be scent detecting pythons.
didn't they just capture like the biggest one or something like that?
Yeah, whatever is DeSantis, is that his name? DeSantis. Yeah, the guy that's. I'm pretty sure he's going to get the Republican nomination for president in this next election, since the Don has recently tripped over himself,
Throwing ketchup on the wall.
throwing ketchup on the wall and trying to choke out his Secret Service people.
Right.
But
We're going to the Capitol, goddammit.
I'm the president.
Well, as you can imagine, wrongful convictions can often be based on false forensics, otherwise known as, quote, junk science. The Texas Innocence Project found that juries and judges see scientific experts as trustworthy and convincing.
I just now noticed for the first time that the initials for Texas Innocence Project
It's TIP.
is TIP.
Well, technically, I think their official name is the Innocence Project of Texas.
Because it's like, can you imagine?
Which is IPOT.
Yeah, the judge is like, yeah, are we going to hear from witnesses today? No, just the tip.
Just the
Here in this place they call disgrace, I never even had a chance. There was no time to disprove lies. I had to fight to stay alive. But every now and then I'd seem to win, 'cause I had my dreams to hold on to. Only freedom matters. Only freedom.
Obviously, your case is a prime example of how few checks and balances there are on prosecutors. As is always the case, you have the full force of the police and the state with unlimited resources accusing someone of doing something wrong, and they really don't have any oversight other than themselves. How does that foster an environment that makes it easy for them to just lie and maybe use junk science that may not have even been fully vetted?
Well, possibly in every case. That's the way I see it. I mean, it's a giant against one person. So it can possibly happen in every case. And that's the way I see it. It's just one-sided. when they talk about justice for all, I just don't believe that that's truly the case in most cases.
Right, and a lot of times even with the hired private attorney, but especially in something like a public defender, the resources are really limited when you're trying to fight that, and they have, they can send out scores and scores of police officers, but you go and ask the judge for one investigator, and he has a problem with it.
Right. That's the basic census. The money, they have the money, and you have nothing, basically, and you have to demand the judge give you one investigator.
Well, skilled prosecutors like, for example, Joe Freeman Britt from the McCollum Brown case in episode 8 could theoretically be quite adept at selling fraudulent scientific-sounding theories. I'm not saying that you shouldn't believe any experts, but just be on high alert and use good judgment. Fast forward to the 4 main trial witnesses for the prosecution: an ex-girlfriend, the dog handler, the truck driver, and a prison inmate turned snitch. I swear, I'm not trying to set up a joke this time either. I didn't even mention the bar this time.
I know, because that's the first thing that was going through my mind is like, all right, a dog handler, an ex-girlfriend, and a truck driver walk into a bar.
Yeah, that we're just missing the bar. All right, so let's talk about William's former girlfriend, Donna Parrish, who he had only known for a couple of weeks, claimed to have been with him on the night of the crime. She provided testimony saying that she saw him standing over the victim's body while wearing a yellow T-shirt. So just a normal date in Florida with the ex?
Right.
I mean, how did that conversation go? Hey, haven't heard from you in a while. Want to watch me kill a guy?
Oh, thanks for the T-shirt.
Anyway, her testimony was contradictory, and she admitted to being confused while on the stand. It wasn't really a dead body. It was just, yeah. Am I in Florida? Still?
Again?
John Preston, the dog handler, testified that Harris II had indicated a connection between the crime scene, the T-shirt, and William. Remember, juries are easily swayed by, quote, expert testimony.
Preston, the dog handler, on the stand. Sir, how was this crime scene? It was rough. Dad jokes, baby. We got them.
God. Anyways, well, don't you guys fall for it, though. More on that later. John Parker, who you may be interested to know, was legally blind in one eye, identified William in court. He said that he was the hitchhiker he picked up near the crime scene on the morning of August 17th. John went on to say that the hitchhiker was 6 feet tall with a mustache. I feel like John, the truck driver, needs to pay more attention when it comes to his random physical conquests.
Yeah, I mean, he's blind in one eye. I mean, hitchhiker covered in blood with an eye patch.
No, the truck driver had the eye patch.
Oh, the truck driver was blind in one eye.
He was blind in one eye, yeah.
How did he have a CDL?
I don't know. This is 1981 in Florida?
I don't know. I know you couldn't do that now.
Yeah, I don't think so. All right, well, case in point, William is 6'4". See, sometimes size does matter.
Yes, I'm 5'6", and screw you, William.
And here's the kicker. He's physically unable to grow a mustache.
Oh, Freddie Mercury would be so disappointed in him.
And what was it that you think, or what was it actually that finally got the court to pay attention and kind of tell us about that filing and kind of what the filing was, and then, how you heard about it, how you felt about it, stuff like that?
I was in a regular library one day after serving like 26 years, and a prisoner came up to me, and he asked me had I ever had a DNA test, and I told him no. He actually said, I know you've been in prison a long time. He said, have you ever had a DNA test? And I told him no, and he handed me the paperwork right there and says, fill this out and send it in. If they ask you where the evidence is, just tell them it's in the sheriff's department. And that's what I did. I filled it out and sent it in. And they granted it. They granted me a show cause and sent me back to the county jail for evidentiary hearing on why I shouldn't be allowed a DNA test.
I'm assuming the DA was fighting it the whole way.
Oh yes, they were fighting it tooth and nail, without a doubt. They were adamantly saying that there was no evidence to be tested and all that stuff, and it ended up that the shirt that was to be tested was in the courthouse evidentiary room. So they weren't able to do anything with that. I personally feel that they took that evidence out of there and made it disappear. But since it was in the courthouse evidence room, the shirt that was DNA tested was able to be DNA tested. But that was over a court battle that they fought for a little bit, denying that there was any evidence to be tested.
Yeah, it's amazing sometimes when these DAs fight this stuff that, it's like, wait a second, don't you want to get to the truth, or are you just trying to win?
Well, that's my point. It's not about truth. It's about the fact of their integrity. They don't want to be known as a person that sent somebody to prison for 27 years wrongfully imprisoned a person for 27 years. They don't want to be known as that person. That puts a mark on their perfect record that they have going on.
Hey, come on, jury. I know you've been wowed by a scientific expert and the scintillating testimony of an ex-girlfriend, but are you even listening? There were additional parts of Mr. Parker's description of the hitchhiker that didn't match William at all. Oh, and not for nothing, but at the trial, John said he wasn't sure that William was the man he picked up after all. This last one's going to be fun. Well, not fun in the traditional sense of the word, more in a sarcastic sense. Let's just say it's going to be interesting. An inmate, Roger Dale Chapman, who was awaiting his own trial on charges of raping a 16-year-old girl, testified that William admitted to being guilty of James Dvorak's murder and even acted it out.
Like, is this something that he claimed happened while they were incarcerated together? Like, two guys in a cell, the get-to-know-you portion of that is, well, I killed a hitchhiker.
Right, and then he says, could you act that out for me? Like,
it's like charades.
Yeah, could you show me how you actually stabbed?
First word, 2 syllables.
Oh, man. Well, many of the details of this alleged confession didn't match the crime, and somehow the other prisoners who were nearby during William's reported reenactment didn't hear a thing. So there were no other so-called witnesses to corroborate Roger's testimony. Next, something surprising, nay, unexpected, nay, unforeseeable happened.
A horse walked into the courtroom.
Nay.
There was suddenly neighing.
You should know by now when I'm being sarcastic, dear listeners. After William's trial, Roger's rape charge was conveniently dropped by the prosecutors. Sorry, ladies, the justice system just can't protect you from this particular rapist right now. They'll get him next time, right? And now, of course, we have another victim who won't see justice. I think I was right to be less than confident about the prosecution's evidence. I knew I should have said 0%. Maybe next time.
But you're a gambler.
I'm a gambler.
Yeah.
As for the other side, William testified in his own defense. He stated that he was miles away from the beach on the night in question. There were witnesses who corroborated his alibi. What else could a jury want from an innocent man with no connection to the victim? His alibi is literally a slam dunk as far as the defense goes. So naturally, after a 5-day trial, William was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison. How sad is that the verdict didn't even surprise me? Is this the new normal?
No, in a 5-day trial. I mean, that's what Vincent Cozy basically got.
Yeah.
So, I guess it's the norm, whether it's Wisconsin or Florida.
Right.
It's the norm.
Just curious, but does something happen to a person's presumably sane mind once they find themselves in a jury box? Do obvious things become blurred and obscured by some funhouse mirror that the prosecution stands in front of? Or maybe it has something to do with the funky kind of Kool-Aid that the jurors are forced to drink before trials. Sorry, I'm just still struggling to find a rhyme or a reason in the U.S. justice system. At this point, I'll take either option and be on my way.
Well, I mean, I sat in courtrooms for years and years and years. And I know I hate the fact that I keep bringing this place up, because if I keep talking about it, it's never going to die. But when I worked for the Hunt County Sheriff's Department, I worked in the courtrooms, and I used to watch jury selections and listen to all the questioning, and even hear them discuss things amongst themselves during recesses, even though they're not supposed to do that. Everybody does.
Right.
But it seems like the people who get picked for a jury, it's like they all wanted to be either a cop or a superhero in life, and somehow life just shit on them, and they never got those two things. They never got superpowers or a badge and a gun. And so they're using their position as a juror to, quote, I'm doing fingers in the air, do the right thing.
Right.
They can't wait to put somebody at the end of a rope. And
Right.
most of the time, they're pissed off that we don't hang people from ropes anymore.
Spent most of my life in prison, chasing a dream called justice, chasing a dream.
So tell us a little bit about your struggle to get your conviction overturned while you were in prison. Like, what was a typical day for you like?
Basically, I just litigated as much as I could by myself through the law library or through what they call paralegals in prison from the law library to some degree. You know, whenever I'd get paperwork, I'd file it and have somebody help me initially. I knew nothing about it. Most of the time, I knew nothing about it other than what it was. And I tried my best to try to look into it as well as I could. And I'd get my paralegals to file it for me. They call themselves paralegals, but basically it was nothing. And they just kept denying me every which way. You know, it wouldn't take very long to do it, and boom, I get denied. My 3.850 was a long course of things, but it was denied. It was just a constant struggle to continually try to find ways and means to file paperwork, to stay in the courts, to get my day.
Somebody please set me free.
All right, well, in a textbook example of too little too late, Donna the ex recanted her testimony less than 2 weeks after the trial. Now, sidebar here, we've talked about the common causes of wrongful convictions in previous episodes. In this case so far, you may have noticed hints of, quote, mistaken witness ID and false or misleading forensic evidence. Just remember, Harris II is still a very good boy who likes belly rubs and milk bone dog biscuits.
Sausages.
Sausages. Well, now we're going to lob a blatant grenade of official misconduct at you. Yet again.
By the dog?
Not by the dog.
Oh. He wasn't a good boy. See, I knew it.
I wonder why the Sound of Silence lyrics, "Hello darkness, my old friend," just popped into my head.
And in the naked light I saw 10,000 people, maybe more. People talking without speaking. People hearing without listening. People writing songs and voices never shared. And no one dared disturb the sound of silence. Full said I.
Okay. End sidebar. So the ex recants, saying that she fabricated her story about seeing William at the crime scene after being threatened by officers with 25 years in prison as an accessory if she didn't testify against him. It was later revealed that she had sex with the lead officer in William's case, Sergeant Charles Slaughter. No, I did not make that name up. while the investigation was underway.
You do remember Sergeant Slaughter, though.
Yes, from
it was the wrestler, and he was also a G.I. Joe character.
yes, that's right.
He was a G.I. Joe character. He had an action figure, and he was in the cartoon. I actually saw him at a Dallas Stars hockey game last year.
Oh wow!
Yeah, he was in the audience, and they went over and they interviewed him and everything.
Nice.
It was, and he looks old as hell, but he had easily a 25-year-old girlfriend hanging off his arm. So
nice.
You know, if she hadn't given it to him already, I give him the clap.
Wasn't there? Do you remember that old show F Troop?
I do remember.
Wasn't there a character named Slaughter, and that one is
I don't remember the characters' names. I just remember the lookout tower falling over all the time.
and the guy, but the guy that had the hat that was always sideways. I could have swore his name was Slaughter.
I can't remember his name. And right now, all these people listening have either turned this off or they're Googling F Troop. And there's going to be a sudden uptick in that show's popularity.
Right, exactly. Well, this officer was suspended and eventually resigned.
So tell us a little bit about your struggle to get your conviction overturned while you were in prison. Like, what was a typical day for you like?
Basically, I just litigated as much as I could by myself through the law library or through what they call paralegals in prison from the law library to some degree. You know, whenever I'd get paperwork, I'd file it and have somebody help me initially. I knew nothing about it. Most of the time, I knew nothing about it other than what it was. And I tried my best to try to look into it as well as I could. And I'd get my paralegals to file it for me. They call themselves paralegals, but basically it was nothing. And they just kept denying me every which way. You know, it wouldn't take very long to do it, and boom, I get denied. My 3.850 was a long course of things, but it was denied. It was just a constant struggle to continually try to find ways and means to file paperwork, to stay in the courts, to get my day.
Okay, a big Florida sidebar again, please. She had sex with the officer who was threatening to throw her in jail if she didn't perjure herself. Is that really the next logical step for her? Was that part of the deal or just the cherry on top for both of them? If it were me, I'd have the officer go perjure himself.
Well, it sounds like she was doing all the perjuring for him.
In the jury room.
Yes, picture it didn't happen.
All right, and sidebar. So, here's why I mentioned the hint of false or misleading forensic evidence. The inherent goodness of Harris II aside, we have to address the human in the mix, the handler, John Preston. This week, you're going to get a mini wrongful conviction case inside the bigger one that we're focusing on. A man named Wilton Dedge, who had been convicted of murder in the same county as William, was exonerated by DNA testing after serving 22 years in prison. He was released just 3 months after William was sentenced and had been convicted based on, drumroll please, an unreliable ID, a jailhouse snitch, and wait for it, the testimony of John Preston. Sound familiar? I'm starting to doubt the expertise of Mr. Preston. Apparently, so did the producers of the show 2020, who eventually did an expose on the man. Questions about Preston's qualifications began to surface, but by the time anyone had caught on, he had been involved in hundreds of cases. His testimony was instrumental in countless convictions. Harris II failed an accuracy test done by a Brevard County judge. Preston was called a charlatan by the Arizona Supreme Court. In 2008, a Brevard County judge said that Preston's testimony and expertise were used to, quote, confirm the state's preconceived notions. A Brevard County attorney was quoted as saying, quote, I wouldn't want my life to depend on what Preston's dog says, end quote. Again, poor Harris II. Just think what good he could do in the right hands.
Can you just imagine, though, like some rookie starting out, and he's like, hey, I'm going to give you like what is it, like $3 worth of free advice right now. That dog over there, don't believe a damn thing he says.
Oh, man. Well,
I was going to say, you can't spell charlatan without Charla, but I mean, I've done that joke 100 times.
Yeah. Even Preston's legitimate peers in the field of scent tracking have discredited his claims. William's attorneys have stated that the prosecutors were aware of the unreliability of Preston's testimony prior to trial, but didn't share their doubts with the defense team, allegedly. But then again, why would they? That might hurt the case they worked so hard to achieve. No, I definitely meant deceive. The bottom line is that the dog scent identification goes to the heart of the definition of misleading forensic evidence. It is not a validated science. It has led to other wrongful convictions that were later overturned by our hero, DNA. It's time to change Harris II's name to, I don't know, Rover? Spot? Good boy?
Chopper.
Chopper?
Chopper. Sick balls.
And
From
any episode we can have a Stand By Me reference. That's my favorite movie of all time. So, I mean, anytime that we can have a Stand By Me reference, I'm all for it.
You! Come back here! Come back here! God damn it! I'll stick my dog on you!
Run, Gordy!
Chopper! Sick him, boy!
Now, he said sick'em boy, but what I heard was Chopper sick balls.
All right, so, and we'll let Chopper lead a more meaningful, productive, anonymous, and peaceful life. If he still loves police work, I'm sure he could use that nose of his to track down fugitives or some other task that doesn't require humans to interpret or guess at what he means by woof. Now woof can just mean, look, bad guy at 10 o'clock. And the halfway trained officer can see with his or her own eyes that the bad guy is, in fact, standing sideways behind a tree to think small and breathe quietly.
Yeah, I'm not going to blame the dog on this one. There's so many people that blame the dog.
Well, that's what we're saying. It's not the dog's fault. It's the handler's fault.
Like most people do that when they fart.
What, stand sideways behind a tree?
No, blame the dog.
Blame the dog. Well, William would suffer some disappointments in the years following his conviction. All of his appeals were denied. You know, we talked about this in the Brandon Woodruff case that, you know, so many people were saying, oh, well, all of Brandon's appeals were denied, so that must mean that the justice system got it right.
I think the appeal system is it's the country's biggest psych out.
Yeah.
Like none of the appeals ever work. You know, it's like, you can appeal this. Oh, great. Can I do that? No.
Well, the problem is that it's so slanted towards the prosecution.
Yeah.
You know, if you read all of these opinions from all these appeals courts, almost every single one of them says we have to consider the evidence in light most favorable to the verdict. So if you're looking at it as, the verdict was right, then why even look at an appeal? You know what I mean? So, yeah, definitely. But in 1996, requests for access to biological evidence for DNA testing, denied. But thanks to some public defenders and attorneys from the Innocence Project of Florida, a 2007 request for DNA testing moved forward. Although most of the evidence, including fingernail scrapings from James Dvorak, the victim, and blood and hair from the crime scene had been lost or destroyed, the infamous yellow T-shirt remained. Tests were ordered, and the results showed that the shirt was tied to the killer and had not been worn by William. The blood on the T-shirt matched James's DNA. No surprise there. Testing also revealed biological matter around the collar and armpits of the shirt, indicating another man had worn it. The DNA profile from the sweat and skin cells excluded James and William. You know, as skilled as prosecutors are at thwarting DNA testing, defense attorneys need to work on becoming better champions for its use. But that's a soapbox for another day.
There was no time to disprove lies. I had to fight to stay alive. But every now and then I'd seem to wait, 'cause I had my dreams to hold on to. Only freedom matters. Only freedom rings true. Only freedom matters. 'Cause without freedom, there's nothing much left to lose. 'Cause without freedom, there's nothing much left to lose.
Well, let me ask you this. Was there ever a time that you felt like it was just never going to happen? And what was that like?
Many times in prison, I never thought it was ever going to happen. The system was too overpowering and too weighted. I had no help. It was totally empty. Most of my time, I have to tell you, I had very little hope to see in freedom at all, or that justice would prevail. It just wasn't there. I didn't see the vision for it. I was constantly thinking of other avenues to just get out and bring some sort of a notice to what took place. And it just wasn't going to happen in my book. It was just that fateful day that that person stepped up to me and asked me if I ever have the DNA test.
Yeah.
And they were going to close off DNA. The reason why he was asking was that DNA testing was going to be closed to all prisoners here in like a few months. So that's why he was out asking.
Oh, so he was kind of asking.
They ended up extending it another year, but at the time when he asked me and when I filed a couple of days before it was due to close the window.
Oh, wow. Well, that was perfect timing.
Yeah, it was. It was like you say, it's all about a perfect timing. You learn that after it's all through, but you ask the question about how I felt through it. You know, it was very negative and just didn't see possible. It was just too heavy, way too big for one person to deal with, especially without no help.
On November 18th, 2008, Dillon was released from prison thanks to the DNA results. Prosecutors dropped all charges against him less than a month later. How gracious of them. How about a spot of closure for all of you curious minds out there? Remember, I said closure, not justice.
There is a difference.
In 2011, DNA on the T-shirt was linked to one James Johnstone. He was at the beach with three friends, namely Phil Huff, Daryl Novak, and Eric Novak. Huff claimed that the Novak boys attacked James Dvorak after they found him and Johnston having sex. I guess now we may know who killed James. Unfortunately, no charges were ever filed. No justice, then, for James, but at least we know a little more about what happened to him. I must say I'm still curious about the hitchhiker. Was he one of the Novak boys? That would be ironic, since one of them may have killed a man for having sex with their friend, and then, well, as you remember what took place in the truck with John the truck driver, did all this come down to jealousy? I can only guess, since no investigation followed after William's release.
And it's the same thing that I was saying, about the state of Florida and the mindset of some, if not most. Some, most. Sure. I'm not sure what the percentage is in Florida of Republicans to Democrats right now.
A majority, obviously.
Yeah, it's probably a majority.
Well, a majority of the vote.
Most people now, I don't know if they could get away with killing you if they walked in on someone having sex with another man. But in 1981,
right.
I'm sure they're like, oh, you saw two people doing what?
Ah.
Did you kill them? Because that's what you're supposed to do.
Right.
And then you have to burn them, because God forbid.
Yep.
You have to kill it. You have to kill it with fire.
Well, in 2012, William was awarded $1.3 million in compensation for serving nearly 28 years in prison.
And he used it to buy 100,000 yellow T-shirts.
That's a whopping $46,428 for every year an innocent man spent behind bars. Do they adjust their figures for inflation? Do you think? I know a lump sum of over $1 million seems huge, but I'll say it again and again, it's not enough. I'm not sure what the appropriate compensation would be, but I do think more effort should be put into finding the real killer in these cases. The governor at the time, Rick Scott, did tell William that he was sorry, saying, quote, "On behalf of the state of Florida, I apologize for what's happened to you. What I really appreciate from sitting down with you is that you have such a positive attitude." End quote. For his part, William is just trying to move forward and take some time to deal with his justifiable anger over what happened to him. If you're interested, look him up on YouTube, where you can hear him play guitar and sing some truly haunting songs that he wrote in prison, as you've heard throughout this episode. He's super talented, and not for nothing, the Florida Clemency Commission threw in a pardon for William's 1981 drug conviction that he got right before he was arrested for murder. That board, what a peach. Or should we say it's Florida? What an orange.
Right. And the state itself is shaped like a penis, so just stay away. stay away.
Tell me a little bit about kind of the struggle and the difficulties that you've had reintegrating into society after, your wrongful conviction was overturned.
I have to tell you that coming out of wrongful conviction was worse than being let out on parole. Because, first of all, you're under the impression that nobody believes you, no matter, just because you're out doesn't mean, there's a few people that believe in you, but majority of people, you look at you and you think in your own mind that nobody believes you, that somehow you've done tricked the system to get out of here. And the reality of that is that you keep going on day to day thinking, everybody's looking at you like you're really guilty and that you've gotten out of this situation. And as the days progress, you begin to understand the fact that, people want to believe, but at the same time, we're all brought up to believe in that the law is saying, because in my case, they were basically still saying that I had just gotten out through some sort of paperwork or something. So it was in my mind that they were trying to make everyone feel that I was still guilty of the crime, but I had just gotten out. But as time progressed with family and friends and people who loved and cared about me, I began to transition through those feelings and through those thoughts into, just creating a life for myself. Without that help, I never would have made it. Never would have ever been possible for me or any individual. I just can't see one individual trying to think he can do it by himself or with just one person. It just isn't going to happen. It came to my hope and prayers that, my whole thing was that I wanted them to find out who actually committed the crime. And that's where I was, when that eventually happened, it was like a breakthrough for me. Once they got a confession from the kids that actually committed the crime and the whole process, then I found a place where I was comfortable with in this whole deal. But if they hadn't found that, I don't know actually where I'd be at this point in my life right now. Somehow it just happened to be that they did that and made me feel, it gave me a place because it said, see, I told you. But at the same time, what about those people that aren't guilty of the crime, but then they don't solve the crime? Where are they at in their place, in their heads I'm talking about? It's not a really good feeling. You're walking around with everybody looking at you like you're some kind of an alien. And you get nothing. When you're freed as a prisoner of wrongful conviction, you don't get anything. They let you out. You don't even get the $100 that you're supposed to get as a parolee. You get nothing. But of course, you have people that are hopefully looking out for you, at least to some degree. Or are you getting out? They get you out, and then they just, hopefully your family will take over. But after 20-something years, who can expect family to be there? And now it's even longer. When I was released, it was 27 and some change, and that was the longest serving. Now it's 40s and 35s and 38s and 43s, and just incredible amount of time. And what do? I would just say that through time, it took me every bit of the time that I've been out till today to at least feel half comfortable about the whole situation. But I've had some great help. I have a beautiful wife that helps me, and I mean, she's very into the whole program, and she definitely is very concerned with everything that takes place. And in the early years, it was pretty tough with things, but it also helps to have open mind to the whole aspect, which it's kind of hard for people to have as well.
So, we have any wrap up for this episode?
Holy crap, man! This guy, just this poor guy.
I mean, we talk about so many times about being convicted on such flimsy evidence, and then the guy had a freaking alibi. Not only was he said where he was, but he had several people that came in and said, "Yeah, we saw him there." And I mean, I don't understand why that's not reasonable doubt. You know what I mean? Like, you may still feel like this person did it. You may feel like in your gut, you know what, this person probably did it. But if there's reasonable doubt, if you can't say that this person is guilty beyond any reasonable doubt, you cannot convict this person.
And if you are a killer in the state of Florida, get better about your craft. I mean, you can walk 10 feet in either direction, and you can find some kind of creature that just wants to kill you, whether that be a python or an alligator or, good God, what else runs around in the swamps out there? Is there panthers? Yeah, there's panthers in the swamp. I shit you not. There are panthers. There are alligators, pythons, panthers. There are mosquitoes. The size of this recording studio, just pterodactyls flying around everywhere. And what alligator wouldn't want to eat a dead body? Don't just leave your dead body laying on the beach.
Right.
Drag it across the street to the swamp and let the alligators have it. This is your PSA for the day,
right,
from C. Derick Miller. You can find out more about me at cderickmiller.com. That's CDERICK Miller.com.
I understand that you do some work with the Innocence Project. What kind of stuff are you involved with them, and how did that all come about?
I basically started on the board with the Florida Innocent Project. I've always been I'm like an ambassador to it, and basically because of my feelings, I'm trying to talk with and help people adjust, exonerees, to help them adjust and, adjust to the pain and adjust to the outside pains and the different things. And my whole thing is looking into as many wrongful conviction cases as possible. It's always a glee whenever we find somebody else that is a case is worth looking into for freedom. Kind of have some sort of a way and things. And there's so many cases where it's sad that the evidence has gone missing in the cases, as in Gary's case. But the many things, I mean, anything I can, basically. I'm like an ambassador to it.
Yeah.
And I also do the exoneree band. We promote wrongful conviction through music and the exoneree band. I put out an album called Black Robes and Lawyers. It's many tunes just about being prison. I wrote Black Robes and Lawyers on toilet paper while I was in actually confinement. And it's just, there's so many things that I try to reach out, and I try to reach out to people and try to bring the pain and the suffering and just the reality that this does happen to good people.
All right. Well, until next time, remember to stay aware,
Stay strong.
and get involved. See you next time. Bye.
All in all, I was an innocent man. They framed me for murder because they can. The innocence I had has all gone away. The truth of it is they did the crime, and I had to pay.
I had to pay.
Yes, I had to pay.
Yes, I had to pay.
Yes, I had to pay.
I had to pay.
I'm the one who paid.
I'm the only one who paid. Yeah.
Black road to lawyers, just to serve it will be done. Black road to lawyers, Lady Justice lost this one.
The American Justice Podcast is owned and copyrighted by Atua Productions, LLC of Dallas, Texas. Your hosts are Scott Poggensee and C. Derick Miller. Atua Productions aims for this to be an interactive podcast where you, the audience, has a great amount of influence on the content of our shows. You can interact with us in several ways. First and most preferred is you can leave us a voicemail. Our phone number is 972-942-0444. Be sure to leave your name and city you're calling from, along with whether or not we can use your voice on the air. If Facebook is more your style, you can log on to our Facebook page at facebook.com/American Justice Podcast. Feel free to leave a comment, or you can message us on Messenger if you have a more pressing question or issue. If you'd like to blog about the show, you can log on to AmericanJusticePodcast.com and let us know what you think there. If you're a tweeter, you can also voice your opinion on Twitter at @AJusticePodcast. We would very much appreciate it if you could give us a 5-star review on all the podcast streaming platforms.
And now, it's time for the outtakes.
Anytime that we can have a Stand By Me reference, you just stick it right in there.
How did that turn into a Heath Ledger reference all of a sudden? All right, Brokeback, carry on. Let's go.
So anyways, anytime that we can have a Stand By All right.
Let's watch some more of those fabulous Simpsons outtakes.
Hey, come on, Jerry. I know you've been wowed by a scientific expert in the scintillating testicles.
Scintillating testicles.
All right. Hey, come on, Jerry. I know you've been wowed by us. A thought just popped into my head. The guys that are editing these episodes are probably like, what the fuck are these guys doing? So, I'm just imagining, hey, sorry, guys. What you're listening to, I hope you get a good laugh out of it.
I apologize for nothing.
All right. One more time. Let's do it right this time. On your face.